Greetings and welcome to this latest installment of the Centurus Knowledge Series. Today we're excited to be presenting to you about the topic of how to successfully implement self-service analytics. Some introductions. Today I'm pleased to be joined by my esteemed colleague, Pedro Inning. Pedro has been with Centurus for a decade now and brings over 20 years of BI and data warehousing experience to his role here. He's been instrumental in implementing data warehousing systems from scratch and has experienced the evolution of the BI industry through several iterations of BI products, including Cognos, MicroStrategy, and Tableau. And he's a newly minted MCSA on the Microsoft stack. So congratulations on that, Pedro. We have a quick poll here. We always like to get an idea or get some input from our presenters here or from our audience. And today's poll is what percentage of your Cognos platform is used solely for traditional canned reporting? Pretty obvious choices here. Estimate to the best of your abilities, 25, 50, 75, or 100%, or don't have Cognos or have absolutely no idea. Seems to have flattened out here, so I'll close it out and share it. So about 75% are using it solely for traditional reporting. Or sorry, 45% are using it, 75% for traditional canned reporting. This is a tough one to actually read back to people. But then you can see another 20% or so use it for about half for that, and 15% or so solely for that, and then 9% only 25%. Interesting. So thank you very much for your insights there. And with that, we are going to get into the core of the presentation. So I will hand the microphone, the floor over to Pedro. Pedro, take it away.
Thank you, Mike. That was an interesting poll where a majority of existing Cognos implementations are still kind of used for canned reporting. So we'll weave that in, but we're going to talk about today self-service BI, and it seems like from the dawn of BI, when we started talking about information management and things like that way back, I don't know, the 90s, sometime around that time, self-service has always been kind of a goal. And in the last few years, there's been an explosive growth in new modern BI tools. We have some of them over here, Qlik, Power BI, Tableau. And of course, there's IBM Cognos Analytics. And Cognos Analytics has been kind of in a unique spot where they've been a legacy for a while. They've been around for a long time, and they're not necessarily associated maybe with the supposed modern use of self-service BI like Tableau and Power BI. We're going to talk about that later in the presentation. But we're going to talk about self-service BI first. We're going to kind of pull ourselves away from the technology a little bit. Let's talk about what is self-service BI. Now, I'm sure a lot of you out there can come up with a definition, and there's probably a lot of definitions out there. I'm going to put one out here on the screen, and we could kind of drill into this. So I have a definition here. Self-service BI allows business users to access more data sources on their own, model their own data, and create reports or dashboard visualizations with very little help from IT. The goal, or one of the promises, is it could lead to faster and more agile data analytics as compared with traditional BI development. So if you take that first part of the definition out there, traditional BI development, allowing users to access more data on their own, model their own data, that was pretty much something that a lot of tools didn't really want you to do. It was more of an IT report factory. We'll meet with you, we'll model the data for you, wait a few months, we'll get back to you. So the modern tools have kind of flipped that script a bit and say, we'll give you the tool and you can have everything on your own, do it your way, okay? That supposedly is going to lead to that faster and more agile data analytics environment compared with the old method. So that promise of self-service BI is basically saying, let's give the business users direct access to data. And then as long as we give them access to the data, we give them access to reporting tools, we'll get all that report burden off from IT. We don't have to do anything anymore. Give them access to the tables, give them access to the data warehouse. That's the promise. Then we'll have better decision making. It'll happen more quickly. We want it to drive business growth. Ultimately, all BI systems from the dawn of time wants us to be able to drive business growth more quickly so that we can respond out there. And with the advent of big data, that's even more important. And another promise is that these new modern BI tools, they're going to give you more visual, more insightful, more automated analysis. You know, the users themselves can create and iterate on their own analytic reports and dashboards, not IT. But then we have to ask the question, then why do so many self-service BI efforts go wrong? How many of you out there have been in supposed self-service implementations? How many of you have gone out there and bought 200 licenses of Tableau? People install it, they don't really use it. Maybe they use it just for a little bit. How many of you out there have tried to put Cognos out there and it just becomes more of an extract tool than anything else versus self-service BI? Probably the ultimate self-service BI tool is Excel still, even to this day. So what are the issues? What are the common misconceptions when it comes to self-service BI? How about this one? So IT is going to buy the tool, we're going to install it, you know, we'll build it up, and from a platform perspective, we're done. End users here, there. We're going to make that data available and then give it to the users. But what inevitably happens is users will get to a certain point, they're going to hit those roadblocks, and they've had minimal training maybe, and the modeling, the semantic layer of the tool only serves up the basic raw data to the point where these users throw up their hands and they can't use it. Okay, another scenario where BI tools are in place, uses as an extract tool, do the rest of it in Excel. Another misconception, eliminates the need for IT, or at least minimizes the need for IT, but ultimately the complex data, there's complex data out there and it still needs to be modeled, you know. Simply loading up Power BI or Tableau in Cognos, also Cognos, and pointing it to a data source doesn't remove the need for maybe IT or an administrator or somebody working with the business to help model that data in a way that the BI tool can be as a doorway, act like a doorway to access that IT controlled data or a nice semantic layer. Now, there may be some users out there who know that backend data very well, and that could be probably in the minority. And a lot of people out there will probably be fine with that. Majority of users, however, they're going to need a properly modeled metadata layer to make this stuff work. Another misconception, I got a brand new BI tool, it's going to be a successful project. And I'm spending a lot of money on that. Ultimately, though, again, your foundational data layer, your foundational data governance, your foundational business processes around self-service analytics have to be strong in order for that tool to work. And another common misconception, users will automatically understand how to use that tool. Change management, user training are critical. There's a lot of very smart people out there. They get to a certain point, but they're always going to need help. And ultimately, it becomes going right back to the data as a data issue. So these are some common misconceptions. So how do we focus? How do we focus our efforts to help with implementing a BI self-service platform? Here are some ideas that we're going to walk through. We're going to walk through some best practices for this area. And we're going to talk a little bit more about requirements discovery instead of gathering. And we're going to focus a little more on Cognos self-service architectures. This is where we will get into a bit of the tool. This is more of a slanted towards Cognos. But I think you could even actually extrapolate some of those to whatever tool you're thinking about implementing. And maybe you'll give Cognos a second thought if you're thinking about moving away from Cognos to other tools, because there's a lot of things that change that area. Okay, so let's talk a little bit first about some best practices for self-service BI. I'm sure there are a lot more. Other people have thought about other things, but let's talk about this first. Data governance. Now, continued use of a very good data governance process for existing data warehouses and sources is very important. Data warehouses are not going to go away simply because users can just take that tool and drop it to the source of the data. In fact, having a user install a tool and pointing it to your ERP system's customer set of tables is probably a recipe for disaster. Data warehouses have over the years matured quite a bit to the point where all the cleansing, all the QA, people have signed off on things like this is our governed customer dimension. These are our products. These are what you want to look at. Okay, they're going to rely on the curation of key enterprise data. It's going to be a critical component of continued data quality. So when you start implementing self-service BI and start installing these tools, having data governance and having a catalog and having those users understand where the proper data sources is very important. Now, we've done another webinar. Centaurus has done another webinar on this topic. It was recently showed. It's on our website. I would advise you to take a look at that. It's called Why Bother with Data Governance? Suggest you take a look at that because that's going to be a very important piece of your self-service implementation. Requirements discovery. We'll kind of get. We'll talk about that in a little more detail, but requirements gathering techniques that go beyond the typical. What do you need? What kind of reports do you need? We need to transform that to more of a discovery process. Get more insights from your meetings. Allow you to create better self-service. We'll drill on that in a minute here. Semantic layers. Semantic metadata data layer that does not overburden the users. Okay. A lot of efforts need to be made in that area. That's not going to go away. And again, just dropping the tool on a bunch of tables for users who don't know what those tables do or mean, how to join them is going to be, it's going to kind of lead to not a very successful implementation. So, but at the same time, simply serving up a very nice metadata layer which just has dimensions and maybe a core metric like sales, it doesn't get to the next step because we end up in the requirement sessions. Yeah, I need to see sales by customer, by product, by location. You do that. You think you're done, but we don't know that the users need to do other things like I need to do a year-to-date, year-over-year comparison. Okay, they bring up that semantic layer on a nice tool and they could do sales by the current year, but how do I compare it to last year? I don't know how to do that. I'm going to go ahead and extract the data and put it out to Excel, and I'm going to do it that way. Okay, so they throw up their hands and they give up and they do what's more comfortable to them, So, and also another aspect of the semantic layer, we need to have the BI tool allow users to modify and augment data with local data. And all modern BI tools do this now, and Cognos does this, making sure they understand how to do this because a lot of data sources will not have everything. All your ERP systems, your databases, your data warehouse houses have a lot of data, but there could be things that users have on their desktop. Spreadsheets that have demographic data that they've downloaded from another site. Geographic information, census data, things that you can't put in your data warehouses really quickly, and they need to have the agile capability to be able to put that and integrate that into the semantic layer, on their own, and not wait for IT to do that. Capability training, very important, it's critical. Blanket training approach by just putting out a bunch of videos or how to do report writing may not necessarily satisfy the needs. We're at a client right now, we're doing a lot of coaching on co-development sessions. It really is an aspect of the BI training and also what are their issues with the existing analytical process. So there's a technical side and then understanding and kind of helping them shift their thinking, culturally shifting their thinking from just telling IT what kind of reports they need to kind of talking about what the goal is. And we'll talk about that too. Performance tuning is very important, obviously. If your system is not up to snuff and people take a long time to run reports, they're going to think of it as a failure. So we have to make sure that IT has the infrastructure, has the platform capabilities to monitor the utilization of BI, all their artifacts. We have to have a very good usage analytics system to analyze who's using what, who's not using it. So we're always focused on who's using the system, but who's not using the system. And you'll find out maybe those key business sponsors are not using the system, and you'll see that. And you could intercept that particular issue and interview those folks to understand what the reasons why. Now that last bullet there, recognize not all areas are suited for self-service, seems kind of anti what we're trying to do, but you have to recognize that there are going to be areas in your process, in your business, where people still need professionally built IT reports for things like maybe regulatory filings, very complicated reports. They have to be in a certain format. So a percentage of your system, if you want to think of it, is still a little bit of a report factory. That's always going to kind of be there. Professionally developed dashboards. It has to go out. It has to look specific a certain way. So go into your self-service implementation and not think that everything is going to be 100% self-service, but there's going to be other areas that are not suited. Just realize that. So requirements, let's talk about that a little bit. Discovery versus gathering. We always talk about requirements gathering, you know, in the aspect of we end up in our user sessions and we're the BI professionals and here's our business. They're waiting for us to go ahead and interview them and they're anxious about a BI system that'll help them satisfy their needs. But we always then tend to gather requirements in the sense of what kind of reports do you need? Can you give me samples of those reports? What kind of measures you need? Where's the data that you want me to get it to? Do you need some dashboards? You know, so we end up that, then we kind of get into the aspect of what are the tables? This leads us to us as a BI professional into a more comfortable discussion of tables, fields, and reports. And it's really basically stemming from the base question of what do you want or what do you want me to do? So we need to morph our requirements gathering techniques into something that'll better understand the client's goals. You know, we need to be able to understand a client's business process or workflow. We need to be able to discuss existing pain points. And then as a part of this, we can consolidate this with a user story. This is a tool in a sense to try to put all this together and not talk so much about the BI tool implementation itself. So determining and understanding a client's goal, if we talk about this first, this discussion is independent of the BI tools feature. And oftentimes, a user's goal is often in lockstep with their job responsibilities. For example, you might have a discussion with a C-level executive. He wants to see a current snapshot of FTE headcount, for example, how it compares to last year, what areas are growing. A staffing manager wants to see headcount by company location, which is experiencing the most growth. These are goals. They're not talking about fields and reports. They're telling you what their goals are. Your director would like to analyze also the current workforce, but they want to see a breakout of exempt versus non-exempt. Maybe discover what parts of the organization are experiencing the most attrition. So those are some of the goals to the right we're trying to get to, but then you start drilling in even more and we start thinking about, you know, a user's business process or workflow. There's a workflow that usually starts with some sort of triggering event from the left. You know, what prompts that user to seek more information, to seek a goal? You know, that could be anything. It could be maybe it's a scheduled regulatory filing and he has to start doing the filing and he has a certain set of tasks to do that. There's a metric that comes out of line. He gets a phone call from his management team and he has a series of tasks that he has to do. He has to maybe run 5 reports, you know, he needs to run 5 reports, or maybe some of those reports are missing. He goes to you because he's in the middle of this workflow process and you come to him from a self-service perspective, and we still focus on the tasks and reports, you know, and in the workflow, what are those steps that contribute to that decision making? And then what are the friction points there? If you actually go through this, you'll probably find out the current process might be too reliant on canned reports. Could self-service analytics help with answering questions that eventually satisfy the tasks, satisfy the sequence of steps, and ultimately get to that goal for the end user? As you discuss that current workflow, you'll see issues that people are going to bring up. So if we get away from what kind of reports you need and how they need to look like, as you start talking through them in this manner, you'll find out what those issues are. And some of those issues are, I'll give you some examples over here. So users don't trust the data. That's a very common one. We go into a requirements discovery session and we say, the data warehouse is not really correct, or these reports aren't correct. You got to find out what those data quality issues are, because that's going to influence your self-service implementation. Are they actually data issues? Or maybe they're just simple report logic errors. Maybe we've had examples where a user is having issues with data and they run this report, see, look, the numbers are not right. You drill into it and somebody did a wrong calculation in the report. But they've been using this report for X number of years and they know it's wrong, but they just fix it themselves, okay? It could be something as simple as that, or it could be data quality issues upstream. The quote, users don't trust the data, can imply a lot of different things. And as you go through that workflow, that might be one of the issues that they actually bring up. How about another one? It takes a long time to get the answer. Could be a simple performance issue. That could be resolved with database tuning, but maybe you didn't know about it until you go through the workflow process. But it could also be, and this is an interesting perspective, a result of a more complicated end user data prep activity. So when they say it takes a long time to get the answer, and you run the two reports, or you do the analytics in the self-service environment and say, well, no, look, it only takes me 30 seconds to get the answer. And as you expand upon that, the end user will say, well, yeah, but I have to take that down to my environment, and I have to take it down to Excel. I have to run 4 other reports over here in the BI system, and then I got to integrate those 4 together, and I got to integrate that with data sources from my demographics file on my desktop. Then I finally get the answer. Okay, and you didn't know that because you didn't ask the right questions. So, and that could be implemented all upstream. I'm going to focus again on a very simple example. The user comes to you and says, well, I can't do a simple year-to-date calculation in Cognos. Again, it's very specific, but again, it points to a general problem in a semantic layer. We need to be able to put those things like YTD or same month last year into the semantic layer. Don't leave it to the end user to create those things. Find out what they are, embed them into the semantic layer so they don't just throw up their hands and try to figure out how to do something that they can't do, okay? And another aspect of it, something in your toolbox that you can use as you try to get requirements, create a user story based on your findings. So we've gone through all that. We've done all the best practice. We try to understand a person's workflow. Type it all out in a nice little set of paragraphs over here, and you can actually pull some nice little nuggets out of what you've written. So for example, in this question, and this what I've written over here, this is again an FTE headcount type of example. John's an HR analyst. As you type this out, he periodically reviews the current workforce, where it currently stands, how the FTE headcount compares to the same period last year. So right there, I pull that out. How does it compare to the same period last year? John's going to want to do that, and that's a clue to me that I need to be able to provide that type of calculation, that type of processing in a nice, easy fashion on the self-service metadata layer. He wants to break it down by organization and location, see the tenure. He needs to figure out tenure. I'm serving up the FTE headcount. How is he going to calculate tenure? I need to have a start date of the employee, but how can he figure that out? Do I have to make him subtract the current date from the start date and do the average? I could put that in there for him in the semantic layer. Then you get to the second paragraph, and as part of what your findings show in terms of issues, yeah, we gave him a package. We gave him a Cognos package, and he sat down with our IT analyst. They showed him how to work the package, how to query the package. He knows just enough. He knows, gets to the point where he can extract data for reporting in Excel because he's never been able to calculate that change in FTE headcount year over year. And he finds it, again, easier just to extract the data in Excel for final reporting. Thirdly, on the next paragraph, we write it out. He needs to integrate other data sets into the final reporting. So as you put it all together and write it out, a lot of things just pop out that really help you in discovering what your self-service BI implementation needs to be from the soft side of things. Okay. Now that was kind of focused on independent of the tool, and these aspects of implementation need to be kind of independent from the tool. I'm going to pivot a little bit, and we're going to talk a little bit about Cognos self-service architectures, and a lot of it still kind of applies maybe even to your Tableau and Power BIs, but we're going to drill into what Cognos nowadays can help you with in terms of self-service. Cognos 11, 11.1, the latest release is 11.1, release 7. There's some key self-service enablers, and Cognos has always been maybe thought of more like a reporting tool. The polling results kind of show that most of it is just as a reporting tool, and it's out there, and people don't realize that there's a lot of nice new features in self-service enablement with Cognos 11. I put FM packages out there because it's going to be out there. It's classic, still useful. You're not going to go out there if your legacy implementation in Cognos is there. You're going 11.1. You've got hundreds of these packages out there. It could still be used for self-service in different architectures. We'll go through that a little bit. It's classic, still useful. You know, now we're moving on to a more user-based modeling tool called Data Modules, and we'll show the links later. But we've done a lot of webinars on each one of these topics for allowing you to drill into as to how it helps you. But Data Modules are the newest modeling tool for end users. It's much like Tableau and Power BI, where what's the first thing that Tableau does when you point to a data source? It asks you to bring some tables in, join them, do all that stuff, right? This is what Data Modules is doing for the end user. They don't use FM Modeler to do that, create packages. They use that tool. Data sets. Power BI, Tableau also has a concept of data extracts, Tableau data extract, Power BI, I think they even use words data sets. Ability for users to extract their data, their own subsets of data from your source system so that they perform much faster in the BI tool versus running queries back and forth, okay? Dashboards, the visualization tool. It's getting easier with each release. It's getting better. I would still say, obviously, people will agree with me out there. Tableau is the best visualization tool out there. That's where it's made its bread and butter. But the Cognos 11 dashboards, are, especially with the latest set of releases, have gotten to a point where it's almost, I wouldn't say on par, but almost there. It's getting there, definitely getting there. And if you already got a Cognos implementation, not taking a look at that and just diving into maybe porting everything over to Tableau, you're kind of shorting yourself on that perspective. So depending on what you want to get done. And of course, reporting. This has always been the workhorse of any analytical tool set, right? People are always going to want to write reports. You know, a Tableau was never really meant as a report writing tool. Power BI, SSRS, they're there in that aspect. But Cognos has always been a great reporting tool. It could be as simple as a list report to very complicated, highly formatted, pixel perfect type of reporting. All these components make up, in a sense, the self-service enablers of the BI platform. And I would behoove you to kind of look at that in your existing Cognos implementation as something that you could start rolling out and letting users use for that. So how do we do that from maybe a Cognos perspective? I've got some models here that I've been thinking about from Cognos perspective. Here's a classic one, IT-driven enterprise model. This is our classic approach, right? We have source databases. We work instead of discovering requirements, we gather requirements. We ask them what kind of reports we need. We find out what the data sources are. We develop that FM model. We create a package, and maybe that package is very specific for optimized Cognos report development. You create X number of reports for your end users, and they're on their way. Maybe that package itself is optimized for self-service, or maybe you create a Cognos package that's optimized for report professional developers. You create another Cognos package that's used for self-service. You know, it's all there. You could use the FM package for self-service if you do things like we were talking about, creating built-in calculations, pre-built, done your homework. It's there, the classic model. It's all out there. Now, that's all IT driven. All that stuff is owned by IT. Data modules, here's another approach. It's kind of similar to the FM model. It's IT driven with Cognos data modules. You kind of replace the FM modeling tool and package with a data module that's created by IT, but it's a data module. Okay, it's kind of like your first step in trying to move away from FM. If you've done the homework and the current feature set of data modules will be able to replace that feature set in FM, we know that's a different topic altogether. I'd advise you to take a look at one of our webinars, which compares the two products together. Okay, again, it's more centric to IT, but you moved the data module now, you move the modeling development into the data module world, which gives you the benefits of built-in relative time, data cleansing, hierarchical navigation paths, and one important aspect of it is that people can augment this with their own external data. Your self-service analytics folks can literally make a link to this data module and then integrate other Excel sources into it for their own self-service data modeling components. On the other spectrum now is what I'm calling the end user driven model in Cognos. This allows your self-service analytic professionals to really do their own modeling, to do their own semantic layers. And I make this akin to those who use Tableau, and the first thing you're asked to do is point it to a database, a data source. We create the data server connection out there in Cognos. We have a bunch of power users who want to do that. They open up a data module, they connect to the databases, they join the tables together, and they do that, okay? They produce their own data module. So the only thing IT is doing here is making sure those databases are up. And that could be a data warehouse. We have clients out there who have a lot of old legacy applications. Have you ever heard of Power Builder and things like that? ERP systems that were built custom, Visual Basic systems out there. And they've been around for 20 years, and they've got hundreds of tables in there, and they have analysts who've been working on that system. They write manual SQL queries against those particular systems, but they would love to get in there and have a BI tool go against that. Cognos can do that. You could go ahead and create that connection for these particular people to do that. So IT is all they're doing is supporting the platform and supporting the databases. The end user is driving the model. Then they create their own data sets. Another subset of users can take data sets from that data module and integrate it there, and then also integrate their own uploaded files up there. Okay. I mean, the one drawback of this model, I would say, is data consistency. So if you open this model up to folks and they point to the OLTP system, which has the customer tables, and there's a data warehouse of customer tables that's already been cleansed. They put business rules in there, and for some reason, this analyst gets access to that and said, this is my customer list. And then another analyst said, well, no, this is the data warehouse customer list. It's got to be better. Then you're going to have that issue. So it's another area where data governance processes have to be there from a foundational perspective in order for this to work. Finally, I've got this hybrid model, and I think for a lot of Cognos implementations, this might be kind of like the Goldilocks model in the sense. It's kind of gets you to a certain point. The FM packages, like I was saying out there, have been out there for a while. For large legacy Cognos organizations, this model is an appealing choice because over the years, many FM packages have been developed, and they're very stable, and they have great data integrity, and they have the blessing of the central IT organization. They're IT maintained, okay? So we could integrate those packages together. We could still give people the capability to do their own data modeling, because you could stick that data module out there and you could bring in tables from the FM packages. You could extract data sets from FM packages. So for example, you could extract your customer list, your product list from a IT maintained FM package, which points to a data warehouse as a data set, integrate that into my own data module, which is going against some other system. It could be the OLTP system, but I needed a cleansed product list, customer dimension. I'll do the integration myself, okay? And then I'll also integrate uploaded files as well, okay? So that's some of the models out there that I wanted to bring up. Now, I'm gonna go to a little demo. I'm gonna tab over here to my Cognos instance over here. And what I want to show you is just some aspects that from a semantic layer help implementation. I've got here Cognos 11.1 release 7. So if it looks a little different, if you guys haven't gone to release 7, this is the interface now. We've got some cleaned up icons over here. It's a new design interface that they're implementing. I'm going to go here to my content. I have a data module over here. Let's just go ahead and create a dashboard off this thing. Pick the blank one over here. Okay, here's my metadata layer. I'm doing self-service, and it looks fairly clean. I've got my sales, the sales location and product area over here. And under measures, I got my sales over here. That's my total sales, excluding tax. I can come up with a nice summary over here, and I can go over here and I could, for example, filter on year.
Pedro, we have a request to, can you go full screen on that so it's a little bigger, please?
Full screen, is that better?
That's great.
Okay, no problem. So then I got current year, and boom, I've done my analytics, current year sales. What's the next step that they want to do? And it's kind of harkening back to what we were just talking about from a self-service perspective. I've basically, served up my sales. I thought I've done a great job from an IT perspective. I've served up my measures. I've served up my date dimension. I could slice by products, by location. The next thing a person's going to ask me to do, or I want to do from a self-service perspective, is I want to compare current month sales to last year's month sales. So I've done all the classes and I've looked at this. I got this. I could slice it, but then how do I do that? And a lot of times people, again, get to that point where, never mind, I'll just download this to Excel, write a report, and then I'll create a dashboard in Excel. So let me go ahead and delete this. What I want to expose, and we have another webinar on this. We've done a lot of webinar on the tips and tricks, but this is really an attempt to show why those tips and tricks are kind of important. Under here, I've enabled the relative time feature of the data module. I mentioned that briefly, where we can enable a relative time feature where by a simple drag and drop, here's my current month sales here, and here's my same month last year. Okay, as an end user, I didn't have to calculate that. But how do I visually show that in a nice way? As of a release 4, I believe, or is it 5? I'll double check that. There's a new widget called the KPI widget, and it allows me to do this in a nice graphical manner. So I can take my current month sales, it's my base value. I could take the same month from last year and put it in my target value. The comparison is done automatically. I can make this widget look nicer, sales year over year, current month, brush it up, bold, center. I go over here to my properties, and on the chart here, I don't want to show the label. Maybe that's what I want to show. Okay, I've done it in basically a couple of drags and a little bit of formatting.
I think it's worth pointing out, Pedro, sorry to cut in here on you though, that just for the Tableau and Power BI users, or those who haven't used any of the tools, that you have to make this really useful, you have to create those measures over there on the left, the year over year comparisons, and everybody wants to do that. You have to create those in Cognos, you have to create those in Tableau, you have to create those in Power BI. And kudos to Cognos for actually implementing that ability to generate those things fairly easily. And Pedro, you did a webinar on that.
Yes, I did.
On just this KPI tool. So it's worth looking at that. They've all got KPI widgets now. Again, I'd give the nod to Cognos here in terms of being the easiest to do what he just did there. Their Power BI is okay, not quite as good, but it's a widget. And Tableau only offers it on Tableau Server at this point, and it's more limited. But if you're really going to implement self-service on any of these, you've got to really have those comparisons out there and understand what those comparisons are, and make sure that they can either create them themselves or you have to provide them.
Thank you, Mike. Yes, definitely. So, yeah, I mean, we started off kind of independent of the BI tools, and one of the things we came from that process was to we need to be able to do this. And now we're kind of drilling into the tool itself and showing you how you can do that. We talk about architectures, and this is one aspect of it that I wanted to show. Exposing this type of stuff, and we'd probably organize this a little better. Not just simply exposing the sales metric, not just simply exposing, tax amount, but exposing calculations and metadata that allows them to get to the true business need to answer the goal is what we're trying to get to over here. And that's why I wanted to show you that if we didn't have that, I still couldn't do this, right? I'd still have to figure out a calculation. I'd have to do something else, right? I may have to do calculation in data module, but I'm going to spend time doing that. If you've done it up there for them, it's easy for you to do from a drag and drop. The other thing I want to show you, which is kind of big on the tool set, is being able to add augmented data, okay? Let me close this over here. And I'm going to bring my window down here. I'm going to actually go ahead and get out of my presentation over here. I've got a spreadsheet here on my desktop, and this spreadsheet, has good information in here. It has my sales by salesperson, and it has a sale goal, and there's the current sales. How many of you out there really have very defined Excel spreadsheet processes that you've been doing for many, many years? And you're not about to put it into a data warehouse process, but you've got a process from A to Z where you get your own sources, you put it all together, you get an ultimate spreadsheet like this. And I want to report on this in the BI tool. Well, without wasting so much time and figuring out how to reverse engineer your process, I'd like to put this spreadsheet up into the BI tool itself. We might eventually get to reverse engineering the process of how we got here, but this is really what I want to report on. And there's so many folks out there who are basically doing desktop data prep, and there's a lot of tools out there that do desktop data prep as well. But how do I get this into Cognos? It's really, I don't know how many people don't know this, but it's a really simple thing. You just go over here, you drag it on top of Cognos, and the file gets uploaded. And it gets read and it's analyzed, okay? And now that spreadsheet is in my Cognos environment. So what was one of the aspects of the semantic data layer was to be able to augment the data with external data. And it becomes very simple. Now, this spreadsheet is in my content folder. Here it is, sales goals. It was uploaded on September 24th. And what I want to do is modify my data module to add that in there. So I'm going to add a new source, go to my content, and I'm going to add sales goal and say, okay. There's my sales goal spreadsheet. I'm going to save that. I'm going to close this out. I'm going to go back in that data module here, and I'm going to create a dashboard on that. Okay. Again, there it is. I have a new set of data. How long did that take? Several seconds. Once people are trained and understand this, I could report off this now. Let's go ahead and do a target goal, sales to goal comparison. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and drag over that KPI widget again, right? I'm going to go to that spreadsheet. I'm going to say the base value was the person's sales, and here's a sale goal. Okay. And this one actually has an area for quarter. So I want to go for this quarter, put it on the filter, and there I have it. Okay. I've done my analysis. I could do reporting off this in the reporting tool, or I have it here in my dashboard. Okay. So I picked two aspects of what I was trying to present and trying to emphasize that if you do this right, if you train people right, and you have all these BI tools are almost on par. They just do some things a little differently. Some are better than others in certain aspects. This will really help your self-service BI implementation. So let me go back to my presentation really quick here. Finish up and go full screen. Okay, and I got to switch. Sorry, I got two screens over here, and there we go. Okay. So let me summarize everything here as we finish up the presentation. So self-service BI implementations really require a tight partnership with your business partners. What I'm trying to emphasize is you just can't install a tool, serve up some data, and expect them to be successful. You need to involve your business sponsors early in the game. that snazzy BI tool will not mean automatic success. But if you implement it properly, you put a good foundation, you do the upfront work to really analyze your business sponsor's goals and workflow and processes, you add the technology and you add the business partnership together, then you will get to that successful level. You'll get to that point to where that implementation will be successful for you. Okay, so we have some additional resources out there because I just kind of touched on some things. But as you wanted to drill in more deeper into the technical aspects of it, we have webinars on Cognos FM versus data modules. We have a blog on those two things. Data modules, new capabilities. Also search out there for that KPI webinar, which is what I showed. Okay. And I'll hand it over to Mike now.
Please stick around for the Q&A, guys. This is real quick, and get those questions in through the question pane. So a couple quick slides about Centurus. We are the authority in business intelligence. We focus exclusively on business intelligence with a depth of knowledge across the entire BI stack. Our clients know us for providing clarity from the chaos of complex business requirements, disparate and ever-changing data sources, and constantly moving targets. We've made a name for ourselves because of our strength at bridging the gap between IT and business. We deliver solutions that give you access to reliable, analysis-ready data across your organization so you can quickly and easily get answers at the point of impact in the form of the decisions you make and the actions you take. As Pedro is showing here, our consultants are leading experts in the field of analytics with years of pragmatic real-world expertise and experience advancing the state of the art. We're so confident in our team and our methodology that we back our projects with a 100% back guarantee that is unique in the industry. And we've been at this for quite a while now, coming up on 2 decades. We have focused exclusively on business intelligence for coming up on 20 years, working across the spectrum from Fortune 500 to mid-market companies, solving business problems across virtually every different industry and functional areas, including the Office of Finance, Sales and Marketing, Manufacturing, Operations, HR, and IT. Our team is both large enough to meet all of your business analytics needs, yet small enough to provide personalized attention. We invite you to expand your knowledge and explore the resources available to you on the Centurus website at the URL shown here. There are hundreds of resources there, ranging from webinars on all things BI to our fabulous up-to-the-minute, easily consumable blogs on what's top of mind, again, solely focused on business intelligence. We'd be remiss if we didn't bring up our complete offering around BI training. We offer training in the top 3 BI platforms, Cognos, Power BI, and Tableau. We're ideal particularly for organizations running multiple platforms or those who might be moving from one to another. We can provide training in many different modes, ranging from tailored group sessions to one-to-one or one-to a few mentoring, instructor-led courses, and even self-paced e-learning, so we can easily match to suit the needs of your user community. And then finally, before we get to the Q&A, visit Centurus.com, where we have hundreds of different free resources on our website, ranging from product reviews to tech tips. And you can also go see upcoming events there. We didn't place any in this webinar, I believe, but if you go over there and take a look at the events, you'll see whatever webinars and other events we have coming up on our calendar. So go over there and make sure you bookmark that. And with that, we come to the Q&A. Pedro, I'm not sure if you had a chance to take a look at the question log at all, but the one here up front is talking about co-development processes.
Co-development processes. Okay, that's interesting. Actually, that's an interesting topic because at a client we're helping with a Cognos implementation right now, and actually a new implementation has been going on for a couple of years, is this concept of co-development. And co-development goes beyond just figuring out what reports people need. We sit with the client, we show them reports that we produce, but we show them how to create those reports. We show them how we did it. We have these sessions ongoing from the start of the project to the end of the project so that the customer is not just dropped into the Cognos portal and shown how to execute a report and then go, by the way, go take some training sessions on how to do modeling, how to use data modules and all that. this company, who we've kind of helped along the way, is actually very proactive. The development team sits with the client and their customers, really understands what they're basically the process that we kind of outlined here, and gets beyond just creating the reports for them, and show them how to do it, show them how to fish so they could eat. Basically, it's the story there. That's what co-development is really kind of means. But it's going to be a cultural shift. It's going to be a cultural shift because a lot of people don't like to do that. A lot of IT are just, oh, here it is and we're done. It's a cultural shift in your organization to be able to get to that point.
Yeah, that's really the key to it, right? Is you have to, there used to be either spoon-fed things from IT that take forever to get developed and they just consume that, or more likely than not, they dump it out to Excel and go do all their work over there. So there's the whole idea of teaching them how to be able to have a conversation with their data. And there's a lot to that. So there's a question about with Power BI, what is the equivalent of the Cognos data module or FM package?
I'll let you answer that, Mike.
Sure. So yeah, with the other major tools like Tableau and Power BI, with Power BI you really have you have Power Query, and Power Query is the data transformation tool that allows you to query different data sources and transform that data. And it's actually very powerful. And I think it's a fair statement to say that data modules and data sets, the Cognos self-service version of that, arose from the pressure, the market pressure that Tableau and Power BI put on Cognos to develop self-service tools. So there's a lot of similarities there. The Power BI tool, the Power Query tool is very powerful. It's also a little trickier, right? Because it uses its own language. It uses M, even though it's graphical. There's a lot you can do, but it's a little more complicated. Versus like Tableau now has relationships, and they have basically an abstraction layer now between what was originally a single tabular view of all your data that didn't allow for sophisticated data modeling, and now they have a abstract layer that allows you to sort of relate different data sources different ways and allow for things like multi-fact joins and things of that nature through their data source capabilities. But they still don't have a lot of transformation capabilities. You can do some of that with Tableau Prep. Cognos, I would argue, with data modules, sorry, I'm answering more than the question here, but Cognos with data modules has some limited transformation capabilities, but doesn't do a lot in the way of transformation. It's still very much the idea that the data that you get should be largely ready for consumption, net of modeling it, changing some field names and adding calculations. So hopefully that answers your question. Let's see, what is the recommended Cognos self-service tool for creating reports, not dashboards?
So those of you legacy-wise been around for a while for the Cognos 10.8 series, you didn't know, right? You had Analysis Studio, you had Query Studio, Report Studio. Well, it's all been really kind of compressed down to now Report. I still call it Report Studio, but Create Report is the report writing tool in the new series of Cognos 11. It allows you to go very narrow and also very deep and broad in terms of your technical capabilities. So it's one place to go for simple reports, simple ad hoc writing reports. But if you wanted to learn more about the tool and dig into how to really create very highly sophisticated pixel perfect reports, even manipulating the queries in the back, it's in the same tool. So it's nice from the perspective. Now I don't need to know which one I need to go to. It's I'll call it Report Studio. The report writing tool in Cognos 11 instead of dashboards. For most users who are creating analytical objects, independent of the data side of it, you are working in the dashboard creation tool, or you're creating a report. And that's all there is to it. It's very simple now.
Yeah, so and then there's another sort of question around sources. Can cubes, either dynamic or transformer, i.e. PowerPlay cubes, be used as a source for data modules?
What's the latest on that? I can't remember now. You know, Mike?
I
know it didn't, but
well, I think you can use them in a package, and then a package can be leveraged into a data module, right? That's kind of the method. I'm not sure if you can do it directly.
Yeah, I don't think you can do it directly at this point. I know it's on their slate of things to do because there's a lot of legacy customers out there with Power Cubes.
Yes.
Yeah, so, and I think you could still, right, Mike, you could still instantiate Analysis Studio or have it resurface itself in 11. Is that right?
Yes, you definitely can.
Yeah, so that's still out there.
Power Cubes will still be running long after you and I are.
That's right. That's right.
You and I are gone.
Yeah. I will also add data modules is getting the most attention and development budget out there. So every time there's a new release, there's always something they've added to data modules. So maybe that'll be on their next release. FM is basically being held steady. It's not deprecated, but they're not going to add any more new features to it. So data modules will already has features that are above and beyond FM. But there are still some gaps where there's certain things that FM can do that only FM can do, like parameter maps and things like that. But the lion's share of development dollars is going to data modules.
Yeah, and absolutely, because that's the move, right? The hot thing now is self-service analytics. So the net of it, I think, is you can get there. You can enable self-service analytics with Cognos or any of the major tools, with Power BI or with Tableau, plus or minus, certain features or, capabilities, and what the path you go down and your relative ease with that is a function of how you plan for that and how you handle not just the technology, but that culture shift and managing that. And that's where it gets tricky, and that's what we help our customers with. So unless there are any other questions, I think we covered everything here, and we're approaching the top of the hour. So if you want to move to the last slide, Pedro. First of all, a big thank you to you, Pedro, for a great presentation on a complicated topic, but important one. And thank you to our attendees for taking an hour out of your day today to join us. We always enjoy seeing you on our presentations. Thanks for your great questions, and we look forward to seeing you on a future Knowledge Series event. If you need help with any analytics needs, whether it be consulting or training, please feel free to reach out to us at Centurus.com. If you're old school and still actually pick up a phone, we have a 888 number there, or you can always email us at info@Centurus.com. Thank you very much for your time today. And again, look forward to seeing you on another Centurus event. Thanks, and have a great rest of your day.
All right, thank you.